morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talks. Jack and Keith's Weekend Playbook. We did finally get live on Facebook, I think. But welcome, everybody, on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and all the other places we get to share our show. Check the group down at the bottom. I want to welcome in my co-host, Boxing Hall of Fame writer. Let me get rid of this music here. Boxing Hall of Fame writer and all-around sports guru, Jack Hirsch. Good morning, Jack.
Hey, good morning, Keith.
In sunny Florida, the warm weather's starting to make its way up here. It's going to be.
I'm going to be in New York soon, so now you're kind of giving me a dig by telling me about the nice weather.
It's getting better.
I'm only going to be in it a little while longer.
Hey, listen, we might actually get some snow to melt today and tomorrow. That's kind of exciting up here. That's what we got to look forward to in February in New York. So anyway, how was your weekend? Hope you had a good weekend, Jack. Again, first weekend without NFL football. Kind of a little bit of withdrawal, but did you make it through all right?
I won't call it a withdrawal. We had the Olympics. We had the NBA All-Star Game. I mean, there's nothing like the NFL, but sports continue around the clock. It's like what Dick Cavett once said when he had his show, a lot of years ago. He likes to watch a game, then he doesn't watch for 2 weeks. Then he puts on the TV, another game will be going on. It's a soap opera.
There is
an ongoing soap opera.
It's funny. I sit there sometimes and I think about when I was a kid and I could get like 10 Yankee games a year and maybe a couple NBA games because we had 3 channels. Now I can't get away from sports if I wanted to, which I don't. But it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of like, as you said, Groundhog Day a little bit as well. The big news, well, it's been going on for over a week now. The Olympics, obviously, and then hockey is finally taking center stage. The men move into the knockout round with a big win over Germany yesterday, 5-1, and the women move into the medal round. They'll play Sweden. I think today at 10:40. Actually, they're playing Sweden in the semifinals.
Well, now the fun begins. I mean, we're waiting for them to get in the medal round. The rest is preliminary stuff where the better teams, you look for them to get opponents out of the way. You look for them to see how sharp they look. The women's hockey team is USA women's hockey team. Nice story going on there. As far as the men's, the USA team, I mean, we kind of look for it to come down to between them and Canada, even though someone else could, spoil the party.
We'll get to that comment in a second. Yes, the medal. Well, the men seem to go on forever. We have the preliminary round, then everybody from the preliminary round goes into the knockout round, which is it's just for seeding. Seems a little bit overkill, but the men will play. Who are the men playing? I broke down who the men were playing. They're playing. Bear with me 1 second. Men play. I can't read my own writing.
Keith, rule number 1, if you don't know the answer, you just move on quickly.
Isn't that terrible? They beat Slovakia. They beat Germany yesterday 5-1. Anyway, they're into the knockout round. They're probably going to face off against Canada. They're the number 2 seed. Canada rolls yesterday, by the way, 10-2.
Oh, Crosby and McDavid,
Outstanding game. And I talked to Jack, and I won't give away any name because I haven't talked to it, but if somebody who's big in hockey that I used to have on my shows a lot, we're going to reach out to this week and get back into some hockey, especially before we get to this these finals. I don't know if it'll be before the women's final, but it'll certainly be before the men's final, and hopefully the men get there. The U.S. is doing okay. Winter Olympics are not their forte, right? Except for hockey, they do well. They do well sometimes in some skiing events and ice skating. But for them to be third in the medal count, I don't think is an embarrassment for this country, and I think they do very well. The Nordic countries tend to dominate the Nordic sports, right? So,
well, in the Winter Olympics, because they have the environment, the ski slopes, etc. It's more their national sport, the Winter Olympics, just like baseball, NFL would be more like our national sport.
Right. Listen, hockey, and you and I both admit it, we don't spend enough time in hockey. We watch things like international competitions. I was all into the Canadian Cup, the International Cup competition that we played a few years ago, and I get into the Olympics, and I don't get into the NHL enough unless the Rangers.
Well, it's partly not our fault in the sense that if you look the way they set up the standings in the NHL, it's not like divisions or
That's a
states.
good point.
And it's not like they're battling for something. And we know the way hockey is, a lower seed has an excellent chance of knocking off a higher seed. You're not going to get that in the NBA, or it's rare in the NBA where a play-in team is going to knock off, let's say, the OKC Thunder. It's very unlikely. Let's be honest about it. But in the NHL, it's practically a 50-50 proposition. A team that could barely sneak in the playoffs will knock off a team with the best record.
8-beat-1s all time. NBA, I think it's happened, well, before the play-in in the NBA, I think an 8-beat-1 one time, I think.
Well, and that was with the Houston Rockets. I mean, if you look at the talent they had on that team. But the point over the Lakers that year. But the point is, in the NHL, there's no suspense with going into the playoffs. In baseball, there is still with divisional play, wild card.
Yeah.
And in the NFL, there still is, even though they let in like 3 wild cards per conference. But something about hockey, they've got to make the stakes a little higher. That's not the full answer, but it would go partway towards solving the problem, I think.
So the big question is, I will be watching Wednesday night. I'll be watching the men play in their first knockout round game. Will you be watching the women play today at 10:40?
Yeah, I'm going to be, well, it's 10:40. Yeah, I'm going to tune in. But the sad part is, Keith, you had to remind me it was 10:40 in the morning Eastern time, right? Because I was going under the assumption, they're going to play later on, like all these games in the evening, and they are going to replay it in the evening on NBC. They will replay it.
Right.
But you sometimes forget the winter games are going on in Italy, about the time difference. There's so many people at work, and part of the problem is going to be people are going to be getting back from work and they're going to know the result, which is another question that should come up. Should news channels like CNN, for example, who have the results on the bottom of the screen, they have news going on, should they not report on the result? Should they not report on it so people could see it like it's live? Because if I'm doing something and the majority of people are busy at 10:40, let's say at work or maybe another commitment, and they want to see a game like it's live, they can't see it like it's live because the news isn't going to be hidden from them.
Well, that's a good question. But if NBA's showing it live if NBC's showing it live in the morning, we already know the result. They're probably reporting the result all day as well, right? Since they've already
NBC wouldn't report the result if they're showing it later.
But they're still live at 10:40, so they've already.
10:40, they'll show the game as it's going on. But when the game is over, it's not going to be on the bottom of their telecast. They're not going to be announcing.
I see what you're saying. It's hard when it's 10. I don't know what we are. What's the time difference right now? 6 or 7 hours, I guess, to Milan. I'm not really sure. I'm not good with that stuff.
Well, that's the problem when the games take place. Winter, summer games, something international, the time frame. And here in the USA, unfortunately, when most people want to watch it in prime time, they're watching it on replay in reality. And NBC is often showing it twice. They show it as it takes place live, and then they show the prime event late on.
Well, when I was a kid, they didn't show anything early during the day, right? Like with ABC, I'm thinking of 76, I think. I remember Franz Klammer went in the downhill like it was yesterday. I watched it. I didn't know it wasn't live. What did I know? 16 years.
No, it's fine. If you don't know the result, you can watch it like it's live and enjoy it like it's live.
Well, in 1976, they didn't have all these news outlets with 24-hour news either, so you didn't know the result unless, I guess you could have found it if you, I'm not sure where you would have found it, on the radio or someplace else.
Well, I used to do that with boxing all the time. When they'd have a fight show at Madison Square Garden that would be televised, the championship fight, and there was a blackout, a 24-hour blackout where they could show it on TV one night later.
Right.
So I would not know what happened, in the fight, and I'd make it a point not to look at the newspapers that day, and then the next night watch it like it's live. But of course, one of my classmates was a big boxing fan, and I remember Emil Griffith fought Joey Archer middleweight championship fight, and I told him, I don't know the result. I want to watch it like on TV, like it's live tonight. Do not tell me the result. You know what this idiot says to me? Griffith won. The guy liked me. He didn't mean to do any harm.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, and I don't even remember the kid's name, but what an idiot.
When we were working in the office, we had the same problem. We had a big tennis fan right, and if there was a big match, say Wimbledon or the French Open or something, I'd be looking at and just talking about it, and she'd go, "Stop talking! I don't want to know what happened." So she was a big Roger Federer fan. So
yeah,
Chris brings up a good point. I wonder what the Europeans think when they're here, and they're watching games at 2 a.m. Right? So
hey, but I got a news for you too. I don't know. I'm watching flag football altogether. I'm kind of bored. It doesn't do anything for me. I mean, I could watch the NFL. I don't want to take 24 hours a day. It's hard to be up 24 hours. But
you need some.
I could keep watching the NFL games over and over and over. I love the NFL. But even with NFL players, flag football, I mean, they're trying to build it up as a gimmick, like a little grudge, Tom Brady and Logan Paul, which I can't believe there's any type of grudge going on, with that. But they'll try to, if you hype things according to personalities, you like the game. The NFL players are competitive. I got to give them that. If they do play flag football, they're going to play to win. They've got a certain amount of pride in games like that. And I guess it's fun for them, too.
I agree. And there's a couple of comments here, guys. Just let me make a comment. I know there was a baseball comment and a basketball comment. We're going to get to both of those here in just a second as we pivot. Just a quick good morning to Chris and Ralph and Rick and Jeremy I see popped in. So good morning, guys. Let's pivot to basketball because Rick Sherlock puts up a comment, and we talked about this before the show. Rick has been very hard on the NBA. Can't watch it. Sometimes it's hard to watch. The NBA All-Star game's been a joke for years. And now they've got this new round-robin system where they play. There's 4 different teams, and they play, 3 teams, and they play 4 12-minute games, basically, to determine who the champion is, I guess. But Rick feels yesterday the NBA saved the All-Star game with some good basketball effort and actual defense. You watched some of the game. I'll be very honest. I did not see 1 second of this game, any of these games.
Rick, it's still a joke. Rick, it's still a joke. Look, the players played hard. The players were having fun. It was really good quality basketball, and you're right about the effort and the defense. I mean, fine. I don't remember anyone diving for loose balls unless I missed something. But the effort was there, and the quality of the basketball was good. But I have a hard time getting excited about stars and stripes. I can go to playgrounds and I can see some quality basketball in the sense that the players play really hard there. 2, you have East play West. You have conference against conference. You have something at stake. I didn't know what was at stake here.
Nothing.
It was kind of like the Commissioner's Cup. The Commissioner's Cup, you could say they played a little harder, maybe a twinge harder because they were playing for something. But at the end of the day, what were they playing for in the Commissioner's Cup? The Knicks aren't even hanging their championship banner at the Commissioner's Cup because they know it would be embarrassing to do so. And who's going to remember this All-Star game? The stars, the stripes, the NBA against the world? What world? They got me confused here. Just do it the old-fashioned way, East play against West. The winning team, they get $1 million. The losing team gets nothing, and then you're going to get to see them play hard.
I've thought about this a lot since you first mentioned the $1 million thing, and it's not the first time you've mentioned it in the past.
Yeah, about 6 times.
Yeah, and
they'll hear it 6 more times, Keith.
And that's fine. I'm not saying it's not a good idea, but I sit here and I was listening to you talk about what are they playing for. They used to play for nothing but pride, and they played hard. Right? They actually played hard, and they played for really nothing but pride when you think about it. But
yeah, I get that. But when you put money in the equation, pride takes a back seat to money. Let's be honest about it, Keith. It's a way of life. Once you start paying people money, it's hard to go back and do things just for pride. I remember, when Pete Rose was a free agent, when he was on the Cincinnati Reds and he became a free agent, he was holding out for more money, and he ultimately signed with the Phillies. And he said, look, if everyone was playing for $80,000 a year, I'd be happy to play for $80,000 a year, but now the money's bigger. It's hard. Jim Jeffcoat, when he used to come on our show, former Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl champion, said, we would play for nothing, but don't tell the owners that, so on. Tom Brady, if he were younger, he has the itch to play. He would still do it. Michael Strahan, he would give up his show and his money in Good Morning America if he could play in the NFL again. He'd say, well, I'll still make good money, so I'm going to make less, but I'm doing what I love. But sometimes when you enter money in the equation altogether, it becomes harder. Everyone plays for love of the game in the beginning, Keith.
Well, sure they do, but because there is no money, you're not playing for money in Little League, at least not yet. I mean, there could be NIL money involved here pretty soon. Who knows? But you bring up a good point, because All-Star games, you did make some money, but the playoffs, World Series, those checks used to be important to players because they'd make as much as they made all season just for winning the World Series. And that's not the case today, obviously. It is maybe for some bench players.
No, but it's much different. Don't compare the playoffs to All-Star games. In the playoffs, teams badly want to win because there's legacy involved. There's a lot of pride involved. And, of course, there are financial considerations at the end of that. We're talking about All-Star games that are oftentimes treated as no more than exhibitions.
Well, pride is.
Well, I don't want to get into the country thing and all that. We're talking about sports here, in relation to that.
That's fine. Now, listen, I will say in defense of Jeremy, I talk about this a lot. Sports is a kind of what's the word I use all the time? It is a microcosm of society in general. It is. So it's just a fact. But
I guess that goes back to an episode I saw on YouTube. Did you ever watch The Munsters, that show, Keith?
Of course I did when I was a kid.
Remember that episode with Leo DeRocha?
They
tried out Herman Munster with the Dodgers, and Herman would hit rockets for home runs. He knocked down the scoreboard, and Leo's with the reporter saying he never saw anything like it. And Leo DeRocha said, I'm not sure whether to sign with the Dodgers or send them to Vietnam, because Herman was causing destruction on the field.
That's pretty funny. I remember that episode pretty well, actually.
That was a great episode. I loved that episode. Catch it on YouTube.
It was. You can
Google Leo DeRocha and the Munsters out there if you want to laugh.
Now we know what Jack is doing in his free time. He's
during the commercials. Any commercials. I like the Super Bowl commercials. So good.
Is Adam Silver? I don't know if that's what Jeremy puts up here as accurate. Is Adam Silver talking about doing away with the draft? Because the draft is part of society. It's fun. The NBA draft isn't as fun as the NFL draft. The NFL draft, I look forward to it. I really look forward to it. Yeah.
The NBA draft, it doesn't have the same effect.
Nothing in the NBA has the same effect as the NBA or the NFL. Nothing. I mean, not the finals, not anything. I mean, there's great interest, but it's not like the Super Bowl.
Very few players coming out of the NBA draft impact their teams as much as NFL players, unless it's by accident. Okay? You have a Cooper Flag. The team's going to want to get him because he could be a generational talent, would be their thought. They thought that way with Zion Williamson. But otherwise, look at the second guy. Even last year in the NBA, Dylan Harper went number 2. Very good player going forward. I don't know how great a career he's going to have. Very good player, but he's not going to impact the team to the point where he's going to be a major difference player, at least for a while.
Yeah, agreed.
Danny Bailey at number 5 overall. He was thinking not of even reporting to the Utah Jazz. He's got to be kidding.
It's crazy.
But he did report, and he's a decent player, but he's certainly not lighting up the league.
The great thing about life today is, Rick,
the Munsters too.
The Munsters live on forever. It was aired only for 3 seasons, but it lives on forever. That's what the great
Honeymooners was only aired for 1 year.
39
episodes.
Exactly. It feels like there was 1,000 of them. There's 39 episodes. So
let me tell you, since we're on that, I don't know whether I ever mentioned it, and this is where the show Happy Days missed the boat very quickly. It took place out of Milwaukee, supposedly, right? They were from Milwaukee. Why didn't they have Hank Aaron on an episode? This was the 1950s. Hammering Hank should have had a flat tire, been off to the side of the road, and Fonzie's riding by on his motorcycle. He gets off to help Hank Aaron. And before you know it, he's at the diner there, whatever you call it, with the jukebox.
Yep.
Fonzie walks in with Hank Aaron. That would have been great stuff.
I love that, Jack.
Why didn't they have that?
That's a
Hank
great.
Aaron was the biggest real-life icon in Milwaukee, and Fonzie with him. Come on, how could the producers have missed the boat on that?
My guess is the producers didn't know Henry Aaron ever played in Milwaukee, probably at that point. So anyway, good morning to
because
see.
They did the show in the 1970s, and at that time they were the Atlanta Braves, and the producers had no clue they were the Milwaukee Braves when they played in the 50s.
Exactly. Let me back up to the Jeremy's comment about the draft. He says Adam Silver brought it up in the context of eliminating tanking, doing away with the draft and making all rookies.
How are you coming as a free agency? A team's going to bid big money on him?
I know that's going to be a mess. I would.
You can do. You want to know something? You really can do away with the draft if you want, and no one is going to challenge it legally. Players are going to say, "Oh, I want to be drafted." They like the idea of having their choice, but that's going to make things worse as far as parity, because a team like the Lakers and the Knicks are going to always have the inside track to signing players. You take a kid from the New York City playground, okay? He's going to want to go to the Knicks over teams like I mentioned before, like the Utah Jazz. Well, let's be honest about it. The kid from California, he's going to want to sign with the Lakers and maybe the Warriors or Clippers. I mean, he's not going to want to sign with the Washington Wizards.
It would hurt competition, I think, for sure. I mean, I don't think it's something he could ever pull off. Danny's got a great point, though. We're talking more about entertainment shows than we are the All-Star games. So,
no, the All-Star game, they played well. They played hard. I give them a lot of credit. I'm just saying, what was at stake in the All-Star game when all is said and done? They were playing for pride, like they were playing in the playground. I get that. But don't you like, Danny, more competition, East against West, having pride in their conference? They want to show they have the better conference, and you add in a nice financial thing. Look, give the winning team, if out of the $1 million, you don't want it all or none, give the winning team $750,000, the losers $250,000, so the $500,000 difference. That matters to wealthy players too, $500,000. They like the idea, wow, extra $500,000, what I could do with it.
Yeah. I mean, well, you're not wrong when you say.
Yes, you can, Danny, mention the Knicks in the same sentence as the Lakers, because number one, right now, at this moment, I could argue that the Knicks are a better team than the Lakers at this moment, but that's debatable. And also a kid from New York City who grew up being a Knicks fan, is more likely to want to be a New York Knickerbocker than a Laker. If I played football and I'm a kid, I'm a Jet fan, lifelong Jet fan, I'd rather go to the Jets than the Los Angeles Rams, even though the Rams are a better team.
Well, I agree. And Danny, I'd have to remind Danny sometimes, that the Lakers and Knicks did play 3 times in the championship series, and I think the Knicks won 2 of those. So I'll hang my hat on stuff that happened 60 years ago. That's all I got. So I'm not sure what we're talking about here. We want a $6 million man. Anyway, NBA, let's wrap it up with Chris Paul did announce his retirement. Been a very weird year for Chris Paul this year, but he does finally announce his retirement. Where does Chris Paul stand in the? Danny
actually is a Clipper fan. I shouldn't mention the Lakers. He's a Clipper fan. But Chris Paul, the Clippers moved on from him. The Clippers moved on from him. He was on the shelf a little bit. There was no movement. Then he got traded to the Raptors. The Raptors told him not to show. And then Chris Paul announced his retirement. I don't like to use the word overrated. Chris Paul had a glorious career, and is he worth being in the Hall of Fame? He's going to get into the Hall of Fame.
Based
But
on who
Chris
else is
Paul,
here.
to me, you know who I compare him to in another sport as a Hall of Famer? A guy like a Robin Yount. Yeah, he gets in the Hall of Fame, but I don't look at him as being a legendary type player. Chris Paul, for example, he was not, and I repeat, he was not as good as Jason Kidd, for example, let alone Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas. You know, he wasn't as good as those guys. I mean, you could argue between him and John Stockton, who was better. Chris Paul was never on a championship team.
He never won an MVP. He never won an MVP. Robin Yount won 2 MVPs. So
you could say Robin Yount was better in his sport than Chris Paul was in his. Chris Paul was a heck of a good player. I never regarded him as a great player, a truly great player, in the sense that he had that impact, because he didn't. I mean, to what Chris Paul's name shouldn't have come up ever amongst the greatest point guards in NBA history, because he wasn't. He was just a heck of a very good player. You know, I like to compare to other sports. And we're Yankee fans, Keith. I'm going to compare him to the Andy Pettitts and Bernie Williamses of his sport. He's not quite a Hall of Famer, but at least in his sport, he's going to get there. And the other two I mentioned, chances are they won't.
I think Bernie Williams is, when we're comparing two different sports, is a better comparison than Robin Yount, quite frankly. That's a good one, I think. I
don't want to go crazy with this Chris Paul. Oh, what a great player. I mean, he wasn't as far as impact went.
Well, that's the way we've watered down Hall of Fames. He's going to get in the Hall of Fame. If I look at
and I wouldn't argue. Listen, right? I might vote for him, but he's not slam dunk by any means. Yeah, if you tell me Jason Kidd, Isaiah Thomas, Steph Curry, Magic Johnson are eligible, I don't have to ask who else is on the ballot. I'm checking them off, and then I'm going to see who else is on the ballot. But with Chris Paul, I'm going to pass over his name, and I'm going to study the ballot very carefully, and I'm going to say, well, if no one else is there, then maybe, I vote for him.
As soon as the State Farm commercials ended, he should have retired. So that was 3 years ago. That's probably true.
Yeah, I didn't know any hate for Chris Paul. No, I shouldn't use the word. That's not hate. That's a joke. I apologize about that last remark. But Chris Paul had a heck of an NBA career that he could be proud of.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing.
Absolutely.
Everybody can't make the Hall of Fame, right? Everybody can't make the list of greatest of all time, but doesn't mean you're not.
He's going to get inducted into the Hall of Fame. But I don't want to hear, how can you even question whether he belongs? I do question, his overall credentials, even though he's probably getting there. And if I had a vote, he might get my vote as well.
Look at that. You got Danny to agree with you. Good job. Well done, Jack. Let's pivot, because we had a question up here about baseball. Let's switch to the NBA and Michael, I'll get to your question for Jack about boxing. I'll come back to it, I promise.
You never do, though. You're always promising, Michael, you'll get back to me, and then you don't do it. I mean, you forget about Michael.
I'll give it to you right now. We're going to go to boxing real quick, Jack.
Yeah, why not quick?
Bill's got a question. That's my bad. I should have gone right to it. So there you go. After flattening Charles Martin, Al-Jaba, how do you say that guy's name?
Bob. Look, he knocks out Charles Martin a few years ago here in Miami. Michael, I was at ringside when Charles Martin fought an ancient Luis Ortiz. Martin, knocked him down a couple of times. He's dominating the fight, and all of a sudden Ortiz turns it around and stops Charles Martin in 6 rounds. Charles Martin was gift-wrapped an IBF title. He was never a championship caliber fighter. Charles Martin holding a belt in the first place shows what's wrong with boxing. It's a joke. That's like having a new NFL football body and then naming the Baltimore Ravens the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a Super Bowl champion this year. That's the equivalent of Charles Martin holding the title. Charles Martin also is long in the tooth. He's been around a while. I don't take Jack Ba's victory. It's a nice win. It was a dominant win, stopping Martin in the few rounds that he did. But let's see more of him, okay? Let's see him beat a more valid contender, get a little bit more of a body of work.
Yeah, Jack gets paid all the money, Danny, so he gets to call me out on these things. So that's why I kowtow Jack. You know that.
No, I wanted to get the boxing question in there.
No, it's fair. Danny's just
Michael, you have to listen live, but then again, you're in the UK, so it's on kind of late for you to catch the replay glove fist that I do with Frank Laterzo, 7 p.m. Eastern time in the United States.
Absolutely, catch that, Michael. And I try to replay it on TGI Sports Talk when I remember.
Man, I didn't know. I couldn't tell you the Michigan Golden Gloves winner from 1949. Now that is awesome.
We got Jeremy and Brian now, and these guys are Motor City.
Awesome. I was good friends with Emmanuel Stewart, the Detroit Crown Guru.
Good
Tom, friend of mine.
I want to say a special good morning to Tom Dobb. Need a president of HOA here.
Tom Keith, that's his department. We break up the sports. Boxing is my department. Track and field is my department. But Keith is being assigned NASCAR from now on, and I'll follow in his coattails. But we'll leave it to Keith.
Tom,
Michael Jordan, he just won as an owner at NASCAR.
Did he?
Am I correct?
I did not know that.
I believe he did, unless it's one of those A1 pictures that fooled me.
Tom might know. Listen, Tom, I can talk
Michael Jordan, Joe Gibbs. Yeah, man, was he big into NASCAR? The great Washington Redskins, 3-time Super Bowl winner.
Yeah. Listen, NASCAR.
MJ, all right, MJ.
NASCAR is what it is. I can't do any. If I want to talk Richard Petty, I can talk Richard Petty. So
MJ's owning a NASCAR. He's an owner, so that's kind of cool. Look, Rick Pitino owned a racehorse, so these kind of athletes, coaches, they kind of like to branch out.
Here's what I'll do for you, Tom. I'll meet you halfway. I'm going to talk about your Mets here in just a couple minutes, so we can talk about that. So MJ did win. Good job for him.
All right, MJ.
What's he? I mean, is he in everything? Is Scottie Pippen okay with this? I mean, is he going to get into racing now, or what? What's going to happen now?
I'd like to see somehow Scottie Pippen and MJ reunite. MJ's got to reach out a little more. I know he called Scottie Pippen after the Last Dance, but it's a shame they didn't talk. MJ did make a couple of inappropriate remarks on the Last Dance by calling Pippen selfish by not reporting to training camp and having a surgery late on. I don't blame Pippen, because when they wouldn't try to redo or extend the low-level contract he had, he figured, screw it, I'm not going to mess up my son. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not. I don't blame him, actually.
Well, listen, I lost respect for Scottie Pippen when he didn't get off the bench against the Knicks.
No, that was an impulse. Let it go, Keith. That's the problem. You hang on to things too long, Keith.
Not things that are
you
that.
Hang on to things too long. Let it go.
Listen,
it was a quick, on the spot decision. Let's move on. They won the game.
That is not an impulsive decision. That is a true mark of a man's character right there, and it will stick with him for the rest of his life, just like it should. Sorry. That just is. Impulse decision is when you whatever, you get in your coach's face and you yell at him after a bad play, or like Travis Kelce and Andy Reid in the Super Bowl a few years ago. That's an impulsive decision. He made a premeditated.
Had Andy Reid fallen down, it would have been magnified. Listen, you pick and choose. For example, when Pedro Martinez tried to avoid Don Zimmer, you thought he threw Zimmer to the ground. He never threw Zimmer to the ground. Zimmer was coming at him. He said, get away from me, like this with his hand. And you got all mad at Pedro.
Well, first of all, I don't remember us even talking about that. But
no, but I know. But am I wrong?
You're not wrong. In the moment, I thought, what a jerk Pedro is. But after watching that thing 1,000 times, I thought Zimmer should have just stayed on the bench where he belonged.
Pedro didn't throw him to the ground. Pedro was like, get away from me. He wants to keep the guy off him.
I agree. Let's pivot. because I said we talk some baseball, and I got to go back because I got to find this baseball comment that somebody had up early. I think it was Chris, and I think we were talking about the Mets. Yes, here we go. Because I want to pivot to the Mets. The Mets moving Juan Soto to left field may open up the right field spot for one of their top rookies. Carson Benj, I believe is his name, can play center field, can play all the outfield positions. Soto's not a great outfielder. Let's be clear. He ranks last, and I'm not a big metrics guy, but he last in range factor in the major leagues last year.
He only has 14 years left on his Met contract. Only 14 years.
That's all
so
you got.
That range better not get worse.
Listen, he gets paid for his bat, so that's fine. I think it's probably a good move. Maybe the Mets get some fresh blood in there. But are the Mets? I read an article with Soto when he's talking about the dramas out of the clubhouse. He has to be talking about Jeff McNeil. I don't know who else he's talking about.
Soto, I don't think Soto talked about the clubhouse.
There's actually an article in the Post today that he's the headline talks about Soto and the drama gone out of the Met clubhouse. Soto
drama gone. Does he mean because Jeff McNeil was traded?
They don't go into the Post.
Reportedly, Soto and Francisco Lindor didn't get along so well.
Here's what he said. Lindor, and he does talk about him and Lindor needing to be on the same page a little bit better. Soto, here's the headline in the Post. Juan Soto thrilled by Mets' new look roster and chance to, in quotations, forget about all the drama. So,
I wonder if Soto had, after spending 1 year with the Mets, had a chance for a do-over, become a Yankee again with the same offer. I think he becomes a New York Yankee again because Soto really liked Aaron Judge a lot. They got along really well. And he got along really well with the manager, the other players. There was no issues when he was a Yankee. But look, I think it's going to work out with Soto with the Mets. I'm not saying he made a bad move going to the Mets. He made the move he wanted to make. He went for the contract, even though the contracts were close. And I think Soto's family convinced him because the Mets had this supposed family atmosphere. But it's not working out that way, at least not the first year.
To just follow up on that a little bit and do a little what-if thinking, if Juan Soto stays with the Yankees, there's no Max Fried, there's no Corey Bellinger. Are the Yankees better? I think the Yankees are worse for that, quite frankly.
No, you can never say a team is better by not having Juan Soto. They would have been. Everyone is better off having a Juan Soto on their team. I mean, let's not get carried away. They wouldn't have made him that great offer. They didn't think they'd be better off with him, and they got to a World Series with Soto as 1 year there.
They did, but again, I can argue that money needs to be spent somewhere else. You always tell me I can't release Giancarlo Stanton because of the money. It's not just paper money. It's not, it's the Yankees.
No, you're paying a guy, Keith. You were supervised on your job. Can you imagine? Let's say you have a worker there who's very mediocre. They're bad. They're not good. They're not insubordinate, but they're performing their duties terribly. I'm sure you've come across that. Are you going to, and they have a 5-year contract. They have 1 year to go. You're going to just say, okay, I have to release you and we're going to pay you the year. You'd find something for them to do, even if they have to do some filing. You're not going to just give them their money and let them go off a year.
You can't compare.
About real life. I want to answer this question about Bo Bichette.
You asked me a question. You want to give you a chance to answer it, though. I mean, no.
Okay, go ahead.
It's not
and then let's get to Bichette after this.
The real world. Yeah, I want to get to Bichette. And I want to get to some other things with the Mets. But the real world and what we pay Major League Baseball players that's not even compatible. You can't even compare the two things. You can't. You just can't. No. I can't just tell a guy.
The same principles apply. It's a business.
No, because I'm
not.
You
don't want to pay a guy and send him on his way.
Well, no, because
even with coaches in sports, you're paying them a multi-year contract. You don't want to just pay him and get rid of him. But with Bo Bichette, with the media here, I don't know that he have any issues in Toronto. Why is it even a question whether Bichette could handle the New York media? But the bottom line is this.
It's a fair question.
Bichette, no, then it's fair for any athlete. You could say, can he handle the media?
100%, yes.
But is Bichette's personality such?
I don't think he'll have a problem.
Right. If there's a personality issue, yeah. Peyton Manning, his dad, Archie Manning, didn't allow him to get drafted by the Jets, had Peyton stay one more year in college because he didn't feel Peyton would be good with the New York media, unlike Eli. Okay. I get all that. But the bottom line is this: if Bichette plays well, it doesn't matter what the media writes or what they say. That's all the fans judge a player on. He plays well. He's popular with the fans no matter what. And the media can't go after him. Not that they'd want to in any way, shape, or form. But this is a new look Met team. That's what Juan Soto was talking about. I mean, different deals, with the White Sox getting Bichette here. But I'm kind of thinking a little about Bo Bichette is really good offensively. He's been so consistent over the years. Defensively, he's so. They're changing his position.
That's a concern.
He kind of wanted. They got Polanco to play first base, a position he's played very little of.
Zero.
The whole idea with David Stearns was supposed to upgrade the team defensively. And that's why they moved on from Alonso. But have they really upgraded things defensively? It doesn't quite look that way.
How do I know when a guy hasn't played one inning at first base in his entire career?
We don't know. We don't know.
And Bichette, I think Bichette will be fine. The question, by the way, back to the question of whether he can handle New York, I think he will. And I do ask that question of every guy who comes in here. You and I have had these discussions about this all the time, and you always say it doesn't matter, and I say it does. Because I think back to Eddie Whitson and guys like that who could not handle New York.
Yeah, that's rarity. Some guys can't, but for the most part, it doesn't matter. Look, Devin Williams had a rough time last year. There was times when the Yankee fans were really getting on him when he was pitching miserably. But guess what? Devin Williams is a Met. Keith, the Mets are located in New York. This is still the New York market.
They'll have the same.
If he couldn't handle New York, why would David Stearns, who had him at Milwaukee when he was the GM, he's signing Devin Williams? If there were any doubts as far as Devin Williams being able to handle New York, he wouldn't be in New York, man.
He also signed a guy to play first base who never played first base. So I'm questioning David Stearns' judgment as well, by the way. I'm not sure he can play. I'm not sure about Devin Williams and that New York question because he showed he wilted a few times, more than once, more than twice, more than a bunch of times. He wilted under the pressure of playing. Maybe not playing in New York, but he wilted.
Well, he pitched better the second half of the season, but he did lose his closer's job with the Yankees twice.
Mets counting him to be the closer. They better have a backup plan. That's all.
Listen, if players hit bad patches, they got to work their way out of it. If you're talking about a New York player who the fans might really get on next year when Anthony Volpe comes back, he's going to be under a certain amount of pressure because the fans are going to get on him. They're going to expect him to, at least semi-produce, when he first comes back.
I think that's totally relevant and a very good point.
Chemistry, they've changed the chemistry of the team. The only off-season move that didn't work out for them, they didn't re-sign Edwin Diaz, but I get the feeling that Edwin Diaz left because the Met clubhouse was toxic. He just didn't enjoy being there, anymore after all that time, because the Mets offer was close to that of the Dodgers. And if Diaz wanted to remain a Met, he could have come back to the Mets and said, look, either you give me so-and-so or I'm going to go elsewhere and put the Mets in that spot. And I think the Mets would have upped their offer somewhat to keep Diaz a New York Met. If he wanted to be a Met, he would have stayed a Met. He wouldn't have gone to the Dodgers.
As much as I think Lindor is a great player, I think Lindor needs to step up and show that he's a leader, and because he seems to be involved in a lot of these little things.
What's going on with Lindor? I don't get it. He was very popular when he was a Cleveland Indian. Yeah. Very, very popular. And why is he and Jeff McNeil going at it? I guess one was a second baseman, Lindor's a shortstop. I think it started when Lindor promised McNeil a new car if he won the batting title. And McNeil won the batting title, and Lindor took forever to deliver the new car.
Maybe. They had some problems the very first year, though, that Lindor was here. They had some problems over I don't remember what it was, a rat or a raccoon or some silly freaking story that was going around the clubhouse.
Whoa. Tell me this one. I didn't know about this one.
I can't remember the whole story. Let me just see if I can find something.
No, don't tell me it's a joke. Someone brought in a raccoon or something. That would be crossing the line. I hate these ball players' pranks. I think these pranks are stupid. And they have no part in the clubhouse culture.
But let's see if it tells me anything here real quick. We'll have to revisit this whole. There it was right here. Mets wild tale for confusion. Lindor and McNeil disappeared into the tunnel connecting the Mets dugout to their clubhouse. Moments later, the players and coaches apparently startled by something happening in the corridor, rushed down the steps to meet them because they were fighting. And basically, Lindor insisted, this is what it was. Lindor insisted there was an animal in the tunnel, which he thought was a rat. McNeil believed it was a raccoon. And the two of them were arguing over it was a rat or a raccoon, and that's what started their whole problem in the dugout that day.
I can't believe that.
That's from
ridiculous. Is not a strong enough word to describe that. Who cares a rat? I mean, a rat is worse than a raccoon, I think. But the point is,
had some issues anyway.
I mean, it's bad enough. What the heck is a rat or raccoon doing down there? That's what I don't get. That's something I'm going to take up with management. That would scare the heck out of me. I'm coming out down the tunnel and I'm seeing a rat or raccoon.
Talk to Steve Cohen about it.
You're kidding me.
Oh. Listen, Mets also get you older with getting Marcus Semien in here, too. There's a guy who might want to be careful of the Mets fans' wrath if he gets
there's an upgrade on defense, but he's 35, coming off an off year. Can he bounce back? Perhaps.
I think Nemo has a big year in Texas. I think he'll have more power. I think he'll have more power there.
How toxic the Met clubhouse could have been. Nemo had a no-trade clause in his contract, and he waived it to go to Texas.
Yeah.
To Texas. Now, Nemo could have insisted, I'll go to Texas, but you got to add one more year to my contract. He didn't ask for anything in return. He couldn't get out of New York quick enough. They asked him, would you waive your no-trade clause to go to Texas? Well, he did talk to Jacob deGrom, who used to be a Met, who plays for Texas, and deGrom gushed about how good it was in Texas, I guess, compared to New York. And Nemo just snap of the finger was out of here.
Well, listen, it's going to be that whole division. I mean, we got the problems within Philadelphia potentially. Harper's not happy with some.
Let's have a good team. What's going on with Harper? Is he still annoyed about the Dave Dombrowski remarks to GM? Or, you know what I think it could be? I think it could be the contract issue. Harper's getting something like $30 million a year. Maybe 25. No, 25 to 30 million a year. I forgot the exact amount. He signed for $330 million for 13 years. Do you do the math 1 second? Yeah. He says getting a little low. And now that turns out to be lower money. And he never asked for an opt-out, Harper, because he was idealistic. He wants to spend his whole career as being a Philly. But then a couple of years after that, Harper was talking about he wants to play for the Phillies forever till he's age 41, so extend them for 3 more years. And Scott Boras would say, oh, well, this president, the Kansas City Chiefs did it with Patrick Mahomes. My question is, if Harper became the worst player in the major leagues, he wasn't going to renegotiate his contract and take less money. And the Phillies weren't going to add anything to the contract. That's what I think upsets Harper, the frustration of the contract on top of the remark made by Dombrowski questioning how elite he still is.
He intimated yesterday he finds it still kind of wild that it happened at all, and that stuff doesn't motivate me. So if he thinks it's going to motivate me, that's not going to happen. Dombrowski calling out your star player, who's basically been Superman for that team until last year. He played through a severe arm injury and switched positions so they could keep playing. I think he's done everything the Phillies have asked him to do, and he had a down year last year. And I think to come out and say, I don't know if he's elite anymore, doesn't really serve your team or your star player that well, I think is a silly move by Dombrowski.
Yeah, but you want to know something, Keith? That's karma. Bryce Harper was a Washington National. The organization was good to him. They wanted him to be a career national. He wanted out. He just wanted out for whatever reason, and he's entitled to one out if he wants. He leaves the Phillies. Guess what? The next year, the Nationals win the World Series, and Harper's still chasing getting to the World Series. So there's a certain amount of karma there. When you think of it.
I've always thought Bryce Harper was a guy who didn't get his due. I think he's a great player and been a great player. And I just feel like people don't think he quite meets the expectations. His numbers are, until last year, were great.
Well, on reflection, when we did the show, and I did it with Dr. Paul Semendinger, who has that Yankee show on this network.
Yeah.
He was correct as far as the Yankees should have signed Bryce Harper when he's a free agent. I was so on it. I wasn't all for signing Harper, I'll be honest, because Scott Boras is his agent. And any player who Scott Boras represents, if I'm the owner, I tell my GM, we don't do business with him. We don't negotiate with Scott Boras. Scott Boras can come to me at the very end, right before he signs with another team, and give us a take it or leave it offer. Do you want to match what the other team is giving? And we'll answer, but we're not going to negotiate with him. We're just not going to do it. We're not going to play his game, Scott Boras. I'm not doing the opt-outs. And I'll make it known we have nothing to do with Scott Boras. We're, out of the loop as far as he goes.
Fair. And again, we talk about Scott Boras and money, I guess. Another story that popped up yesterday at spring training was Manny Machado saying he thinks what the Dodgers are doing as far as their spending is good for baseball. And it's a very interesting comment to make at this point in time when, we're talking about salary caps and lockouts and everything else next year. You and I haven't talked a lot about this. I've kind of evolved. At one point I wanted it, but I'm a free market kind of guy. I'm a capitalist. Yeah. And I think the market should drive the price. And if somebody's willing to pay you, that's fine. And if teams, JB brought this up on he does a podcast on YouTube, and he brought it up that, if teams can't afford to stay in business, then they go out of business. There's less teams, there's less jobs, and the prices come down. That's the way the free market works. And just let it be. If you need to do something as far as salaries, you need a bottom, not a cap at the top. You need a cap at a limit at the bottom. Because these teams like the Rockies and the Royals and the Rays and 5 other teams won't spend money. And if you don't want to spend money, you shouldn't be in the game.
And they're not spending money. The Baltimore Orioles this year spent money. They signed Pete Alonso, Chris Bassett. They're, taking action. Yeah. I'd be a complete hypocrite if I complained about the Dodgers. When George Steinbrenner used to spend money, I couldn't stand it. They say, oh, the Yankees are buying the World Series. They're buying this, buying that. Nonsense. It's how you spend your money. You got to be creative. And I'm going to tell you, if Kiner Falefa, amongst other things, had just gotten to home plate a tiny fraction of a second sooner, guess what? The Toronto Blue Jays would be World Series champions, and the Dodgers would be considered massive overachievers. And we would hear these same people complaining about the money, saying, see, you can't buy World Series. It's more than that.
Yeah. Well, listen, it is more than that. You have
more fans, Keith. Like Max Kellerman brought to my attention a while ago, teams like the Dodgers have more fans than the Colorado Rockies. They have more fans than the Tampa Bay Rays. So in a sense, if they can spend more, they should be able to spend more. They have more fans following them, and no one is prohibiting these teams from spending money. Look, the Pittsburgh Pirates have a great young pitcher, Paul Skeens. He should be with them his whole career.
Won't be.
They can pay him the big money now. Lock him down for 10 years, 12 years, but they don't want to take a chance. They're waiting to see how things work out. But all of a sudden, you wait long enough, the player thinks, okay, I'm going to make you wait a little longer now, and I'm going to be a free agent someday. I'm getting closer to it.
He'll be a Dodger. George was right about revenue sharing, too. I don't even like the revenue sharing part.
I don't like it either.
Because you give money to the Pirates, you give money to the Royals, and you give money to the Rockies. They don't put it back.
Yeah, I don't go this competitive balance.
No.
Let teams compete. Let them spend money. Let everyone try to, work things out.
Now,
I mean, for their particular franchise, they certainly can do it. Let them get creative. Let them get smart GMs. Look, Steve Cohen spent a fortune last year, didn't he? And the Mets didn't make the playoffs.
Exactly. They spent their money badly. If the Dodgers had spent their money badly, they would win the World Series.
Dodgers are spending it wisely. They're making good moves.
I agree. And listen, I expect the players to agree with teams spending money. It's good for them. But they won't agree with my free market analysis that if teams fail, that's okay because there's less jobs. That they won't like.
You're right. And have the Atlanta Braves handled the Freddie Freeman situation better, guess what? He wouldn't have been an LA Dodger. And there's a small chance if he wasn't a Dodger, the Yankees win the World Series, not the Dodgers when they played head-to-head.
Or if he signed with the Yankees.
Well, he didn't want to come to the Yankees. No, some players don't want to go certain places. Some players don't want to come to New York, especially the Yankees. Not so much because they can't handle the New York market. They can't handle living in New York because they come from different parts of the country. The New York scares them. Yeah,
fair. We're going to be talking a lot about, unfortunately, issues off the field in baseball for the next, 12 months because there's going to be a lockout the way things are going. We didn't get a chance to talk. I don't know, maybe we did, and it's not brand new news, but I want to talk a little bit about Tony Vitello taking over the managerial job in San Francisco. I love the move myself, but and a lot of people have been down on it. A lot of baseball lifers don't like a college coach coming in, not having paid his dues as a coach and a manager. And I think it's a lot of BS. Now, other NBA, the NFL, they bring in college coaches to be head coaches all the time. We don't see this in baseball, so it's foreign to them. I think Bobby Winkle's coming from Arizona State to the Angels, or I think of the Angels, 50 years ago was the only time I can remember it ever happening. Why is it a big deal? And I think Tony Vitello might bring a different approach to the game.
He might, but sometimes I wonder these hirings. You have an organization, you have minor league coaches. Should you hire from within? How would you feel if you're a minor league coach and they don't hire from within? They reach out to a college coach. Now, I get it. Football is much different. If the Indiana head coach Signetti decided he wanted to go to the NFL, he'd get a job in the snap of the finger, and I would certainly hire him. And Marcus Freeman was in demand from Notre Dame, but somehow baseball is a little different. They're going out of the box, getting a college coach. Can he deal with men instead of kids? That's the question. And let's face it, the strategies are the same. He's going to have a bench coach.
Yes.
And they'll have a philosophy as far as fundamentals, this and that. I think that's all the same. I think the strength is being able to handle men. That was a strength of Joe Torre, even though a guy like Gary Sheffield would denounce that. But can he handle men? That's the whole thing. If he can and have control of the clubhouse, then things will be fine.
Yeah. Do you put a lot of stock in what Gary Sheffield has to say about Joe Torre? Because I don't. I mean, Joe Torre proved over a long time that he managed people better than anybody else who's ever been in that job in New York.
Well, Darryl Strawberry will vouch for that.
Yeah.
I don't put much stock in what Gary Sheffield says in that regard. I don't. And his witnesses will be a guy like Kenny Lofton, guys like that.
Yeah, they're did you say eye guys?
Eye guys.
Yeah, that's what they are. They're eye guys for sure. 100%. Right. That's a great analogy, analogy. Great job. Anyway, Jack, that's all I got for today. We did pretty good for an hour.
One quick thing. You always ask me boxing, what's going on. There's a little bit of a story going on you'll get a kick out of. You know who wants to try his hand all of a sudden, maybe at boxing? Jaylen Brown. You heard it right. Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics. He's always loved the martial arts. He takes lessons. He talked to Dana White about it. Dana White's in boxing now, too, even though the UFC is obviously his thing.
Yeah.
And Dana White's a Celtic fan. He couldn't believe what he was hearing from Jaylen Brown. At first, Dana White reportedly didn't take it too seriously. But now he's thinking, this guy is serious. So, maybe in the offseason, Jaylen Brown is going to want to have a fight. But I'll advise him, Jaylen, don't. He's obviously not doing it for the money, but leave it alone.
What weight class?
Leave it alone.
Do you think?
Excuse me?
What weight class would he end up in?
I don't know. I assume they would match him easy in the beginning. I'm not saying he wouldn't have a certain talent. A guy can't just come in and become a boxer. It doesn't work that way. I mean, it would be like LeBron James all of a sudden wanting to switch his career, and I want one season in the NFL. He's a good enough athlete where he could play tight end to a small extent and block a little bit, but it wouldn't go well for Jaylen.
Of course
if he took it up. Leave it alone.
I hadn't heard this about Jaylen Brown, and I've heard it some athletes over the years. I always go back to Too Tall Jones. When he quit, he actually quit playing for the Cowboys, right, to become a boxer. How'd that go?
You got to Google a story I wrote on Too Tall Jones. Okay, Google my name and Too Tall Jones. I interviewed him about his boxing career. Too Tall said when I interviewed him that to him boxing is the greatest sport in the world. He preferred it over football, actually. But I guess football paid the bills, and he was outstanding in football. He wasn't bad as a boxer. He was a stablemate of Boom Boom Mancini. But it takes a while to learn it. I mean, even though 212 fought a little as an amateur, you need a few years. I mean, these guys sometimes are thinking like Ralph Cramden playing golf. Like he thinks he's going to learn it in one day, and he's with Norton, hitting the ball, address the ball and all. And it takes time.
Yeah, just a couple of comments I'm throwing up here while we're
330 million. That comes up. Yeah.
We'll be getting into the draft in the coming weeks too, Jeremy, for sure. There'll be lots to talk about there. Jack, I'll check that story out about Too Tall Tones. That's very interesting. By the way, I'd like my cut of the HBO money that you're getting for wearing that shirt today, because I know
HBO is not in the boxing business anymore. This is an old shirt.
Oh, they are.
I find it hard to throw out, old shirts unless they wind up having a hole in them.
I'm starting to think with some of these shirts you're wearing, you're cutting some side deals here.
Well, you try. I mean, there are conflicts of interest here too, and.
So anyway, we'll be back. We'll be back on Friday at 8 a.m. with Jack and Keith, obviously, in our weekend playbook. Looking forward.
Yes,
backwards. And Jack will be on tonight with Glove Fist at 7 p.m. as he mentioned earlier with Frank Laterzo. And I'll see you with the College Sports Huddle on Wednesday. You guys have a great Monday. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.